All right, so it's hard to follow Sam Elliott, right, with that big cowboy voice. But let me try to introduce this next cowboy. Joseph W. Johnston, a retired U.S. Army paratrooper, highly decorated veteran of the Vietnam and Persian Gulf Wars, served as the DAV National Commander from 2013 to 2014. 27 years of military service. Johnston earned numerous awards, including the Legion of Merit, Bronze Star, and Meritorious Service Medal. Introduced into the Ohio Valley Hall of Fame in 2007, he was recognized for his lifelong commitment to veterans advocacy. Holding advanced degrees in management, business management, Johnston brought his expertise in leadership and finance to the DAV. During his tenure as National Commander, he improved DAV's financial stability, expanded its legislative influence, and advocated tirelessly for veterans' rights during crises like the VA shutdown. Johnston also worked to ensure systemic issues with the VA while safeguarding critical benefits and care for veterans. Johnston's leadership extended beyond his role as National Commander. He was deeply involved in mentoring future leaders within the DAV and empowered local chapters to enhance their outreach efforts. His dedication left a legacy of progress and advocacy within the organization. Please join me in welcoming and still continuing to serve our veterans as a DAV Florida State Legislative Benefits Protection Team Leader and Inspector General, Chapter 32 member, Mr. Joseph Johnston.
Hello, friends. So, I didn't see my friend Tom Ward come in tonight. He told me he would be here. But Tom is a member of the United States Marine Corps. So, what you all do not know is that Tom and I met in a men's room. Now, let me explain that to you. So, Tom has got his dress blues on. He's got that white hat. He's in the men's room, and he's trying to get that white cap just at the right angle and looking good, like a Marine should. A little voice in there, and he said, "Sir, are you a member of the United States Marine Corps?" And Tom looks at him and he said, "Well, yes, son, I am. You want to try on my hat?" And the little boy said, "Oh, I'd love that." So the little boy gets his hat, and he's in front of the mirror, and he's trying to imitate what Tom was doing to get that angle just right. And about that time, I walk in the door. And I'm an Airborne Ranger. I've got on my spit shine jump boots and my black beret. And the little boy looks at me and he says, "Sir, are you an Airborne Ranger?" I said, "Well, yes, son, I am. You want to shine my boots?" He said, "Oh, no, sir, I'm not the Marine. I'm just wearing his hat." I can never pass up an opportunity to talk about my friends in the Marine Corps. I think it's died on. Anyway, the commanders asked me to talk to you about three separate things this evening. One is about deliverance, deliberating and taking care of your new members and whatever organizations that you represent this evening. The second one is about the picture that you see here, the 101st Airborne and the guidon. And the third is about the McClellan saddle that sits in front. So the persevering piece of this starts when I was retired from the Army, and I was in my second career up in Cincinnati, Ohio. And about 3 years after I retired, a fellow calls me up one evening. His name's Ray Hutchinson. And he says, "Joe, I see that you're a member of the DAV National At-Large Chapter." And I said, well, yeah, I am. And he said, "You want to come to a chapter meeting?" I said, "No, I don't want to come." I said, "I spent all that time away from my family when I was in the military. I don't believe in going out and drinking with the boys on Friday and Saturday night. I like to stay home with my family and the kids." And he said, "Well, we don't do that in the DAV. We don't even have a bar." I said, all you guys do that." He said, "No, we don't do it, Joe." I said, "Well, I'm not interested." So he hangs up the phone, and a month later he calls me back a second time. And he said, "Did you change your mind about coming to a meeting?" And I said, "Ray, have you got something wrong with your head? I told you before I'm not interested in going to a meeting." And he said, "Yeah, but Joe," he said, "I thought maybe you changed your mind." I said, "Well, I haven't changed my mind." And so he said goodbye again. Literally the third month goes by, he calls me up the third time. And he says, "You ready to come to that chapter meeting?" I said, "Listen, man, I've told you 3 times now I'm not interested, but I'll give you this." I said, "You are one persistent devil. So I'm going to come to a single chapter meeting just because of your perseverance." So I went to that chapter meeting. 2 months later, I was a sergeant at arms at the chapter. and of course, I've been active in the DAV ever since. So I suppose that even for a dumb Scotsman like me, that you should always take care of your potential new members and see that is there something that you can do to get them interested, because you never know where it may go. This picture over here is the 101st Airborne Division when it returned from Vietnam and was reformed in Fort Campbell, Kentucky in 1973. It's a picture of the entire division in parade. To the best of my knowledge, it's one of only 2 of those photographs that exist. The other one's in the Division Museum in the 101st. It's very unique because the 101st came back with only a single regiment out of Vietnam that brought the division colors back, and then reformed at Fort Campbell and recruited an entirely new division after they returned. I came back in 1972 with the division. I was with the 501st Parachute Infantry Regiment, and when I got to Campbell, I got promoted to captain, so they made me a company commander in, this gets to the guidon. The guidon is the 1st Battalion 506 Parachute Infantry Regiment, headquarters company. You might recognize them by their motto, Currahee, and the on TV series Band of Brothers. And that's what we were. We're a band of brothers when we got together. I commanded 3 companies in the 506, headquarters company, combat support company, and Charlie company. This particular guidon, excuse me for turning my back to you, was carried by the 506 headquarters company throughout the entire Vietnam War. The entire war. It was given to me by my first sergeant when I successfully completed that command. My first sergeant was a Medal of Honor recipient. His name was Gary Luttrell. Actually ended up being the president of the National Medal of Honor Society. And this week also is a celebration of the Medal of Honor Society. There are 61 living recipients of the Medal of Honor. 45 of them are Vietnam veterans. And so I'm reminded about how humble all of those guys are every time I've met them. And Gary was no exception. He and I were having a drink in a bar, a beer, and I said, "Tell me about the medal, Gary." He said, "Well, Joe," he said, "the Army couldn't make up its mind whether it wanted to court-martial me or give me a medal. And they flipped a coin and it turned up on the medal side." And I mean, that's just how humble those guys are to a man. And when you talk to them, you cannot help yourself but to be so impressed with that humility, that heroism and bravery that they all exemplify. So the chapter now has my guidon and my picture, and I hope they keep it because I don't know how much longer I'm going to be around. But now we get to the saddle. And, I kind of talked about Gary Luttrell and the Medal of Honor. This saddle is a McClellan saddle, 1914. You can tell it's a 1914 model because it has burnished leather instead of rawhide, which the McClellans had in the 1800s. And so it has the commander's markings on it for the 26th Infantry Regiment. And after that time of 1914, there were 3 notable commanders of the 26th Infantry Regiment. 2 of which were Medal of Honor recipients, and 1 of which held the Distinguished Service Cross. The most notable of the 3 was Teddy Roosevelt Jr. And this was the saddle that Teddy Roosevelt rode when he commanded the 26th Infantry Regiment. And subsequently, Teddy was the highest ranking U.S. officer that went ashore on D-Day in Normandy. And you might remember from the longest day where he had a cane, he was on board the ship, and he went to the division commander and said, "I'm going to go ashore with my troops." And the division commander said, "Well, I thought you were on a cane." He left his cane out on the deck, so the division commander wouldn't know that he still needed it. So he received the Medal of Honor, and then he passed away in Normandy of a disease that he had encountered. So it's always good to think about the bravery that's exemplified by the men and women in this country, and none so more than the Medal of Honor recipients. So before I sit down, I'll leave you with an Irish blessing since St. Patrick's Day is coming. So may you always have a gentle breeze at your back. May your road be downhill. And may you dance, Lord, may you dance like nobody's watching you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Sam Elliott don't have anything on that.